This is the nightmare scenario a lot of guys will encounter whenever they start cutting seriously for the first time, before they really build their base. You go through all this work to get lean, you finally get to that point, and your abs still look like crap. That is traumatizing. Chest up, shoulders back. Welcome to Revival Fitness, everybody, your home for gains and brains. Today, guys, we're going to talk about whether you should bulk cut or recomposition. This is a question I get over and over and over. It's essentially on a daily basis at this point. And I have a lot of other videos on these topics, guys, primarily on bulking. I'm going to link those in the pinned comment below for further help when it comes to this topic. But I want to dive a little bit deeper in this video beyond just the typical, oh well, if you look like this, you need to do this. Because I think in a lot of ways this topic gets too cut and dry. And I think a lot of people don't have a long-term perspective or an angle going into this that they need to have. So in this video, we're going to not just focus on what you want right now, but what you want down the line, and how that's going to shape your decision that you make at the current point. And when it comes to this topic, something I want to stress to you all is this. As the legendary economist Thomas Sowell has said, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. This is something that, not only in lifting and fitness, but also life in general, if you cannot accept this fundamental principle of reality, you're going to have a bad time. Because that type of thinking is exactly why the fitness industry en masse, that's why it keeps turning. Because you have two diametrically opposite goals, such as getting shredded and getting really big and strong. You want both of those at the same time. Of course we all want both of those at the same time. But as the old saying goes, you can wish in one hand and shit in the other and see which fills up first. I guess you could call this the fitness industry trap. That's what it really is. You're going to be led to believe, and you will fall for it, of course, that you can do the impossible. Of course you're not going to get the desired results. Then whenever you ask them, or you search up how come I'm not getting the results, they're going to have a new special thing you can do that is going to supposedly get you the results. And you will just take this cycle over and over and over and over until you finally wake up one day and realize, wait a minute, this isn't working. So unless you want to go on the zoo culture diet, you're going to have to accept that you need to make trade-offs and you need to do things incrementally in steps as opposed to getting everything all at once. So before we dive into the pros and cons, essentially, of bulking, cutting, or recompositioning, we unfortunately have to take a quick minute to clearly define the terms that we're using because this space has been so tainted. So if you're somebody that is newer to this channel and you have not seen my 2-hour video thoroughly debunking the concept of maingaining, please watch that after this video. I still get questions from guys that I interact with on a daily basis asking, bro, can I maingain now? And I'm always like, well, what does maingaining mean? And then you're going to get one of the 3 definitions, as you can see on the screen here. It's a half bulk, it's a micro bulk, it's a recomp, it's actually a lean bulk. Get that stupid word out of your heads. So if you have been sort of entrenched in the really popular YouTube fitness channels over the past couple years, this is going to be sort of a detoxing for you, but it's necessary. So before we go any further, let's clearly define these terms. So in the middle is recomposition, and your body weight is going to essentially stay the same. It might vary a tad up or down, but it's not going to change significantly one way or the other. This is commonly going to be your maintenance point. It's the amount of food that you're currently eating that is going to keep your body weight roughly where it is. Now behind that is cutting. And cutting is eating any amount less than your maintenance point that is going to produce noticeable body fat loss in a given time period. And it does not matter if your cut is so microscopically small that it barely produces any effect, or if you take it all the way to the extreme and you're essentially starving yourself. A cut is a cut. You are eating less than your current maintenance point. And on the flip side of that is a bulk, and the same principles apply. It does not matter if you're in such a microscopic surplus, 30 extra calories, bro, that does not tangibly produce a result, you still are technically eating in a surplus, which is bulking. And then the extreme of that is essentially bloat maxing, where you are just stuffing your face mindlessly, you're just eating for the sake of eating, and you're gaining a lot of body fat. And tangibly speaking, the extremes of both sides are pretty unlikely, but whatever you're doing at the current point, bulk, cut, or recomp, it is going to fit somewhere on this sliding scale. And when it comes to the surpluses and the deficits that really don't produce a tangible difference, this is something a lot of guys fall into, I think mainly when it comes to bulking. Because once again, you've been sold this dream that you can do some uber lean bulk and just build exclusively muscle somehow and not gain any fat.
You're lying!
A bulk so lean that you're not gaining any body fat is not a productive bulk. At that point, you're essentially doing a glorified recomp. You can make the same argument if you're doing an extremely minor deficit. You're not really going to see much progress that way. But this type of wishful thinking is exactly why the recomposition method is always so popular among fitness influencers, and why so many people do it over and over, even when it's not best suited for their circumstances. Can recompositioning work? Can you build muscle and lose fat at the same time? Yes, you can. But is that going to be a serious long-term strategy to maximize your progress? No, it's not. These are the scenarios in which recomposition is going to work in the short term. If you have a lot of body fat to lose, if you're somebody that is extremely new to training, some of you might fit both of those categories, and if you're essentially using PEDs, that can also work, and if you've never really dieted or trained well, if you've kind of just been mindlessly going about this process, under those circumstances, recomposition can work. But the question still becomes, is that the long-term solution that's going to give you the goals that you want? I don't believe it is. And that's why recomposition, in my estimation, is best used as a short-term solution. It's essentially a bridge between the bulking and the cutting cycles depending on where you are in your current progress. So as we just alluded to, take somebody that is obese. You could recomposition, but if you want to lose the fat faster, and you should want to, you should just be cutting. Then take on the other end the really skinny guy. If you recomposition as a skinny guy, you're gonna build a tiny amount of muscle, you barely have a lot of body fat to lose in general. Your body composition, of course, is going to improve a bit as you start training, but in terms of building tangible muscle mass, outgrowing the small size shirts, looking big in public, you're not going to do that by eating at the level that is keeping you at the weight that you currently are at. This goes back to a point that I have made on this channel repeatedly, guys. I'm going to be beating this drum forever, it seems like. Muscle mass does not come out of thin air. If you're a guy that currently weighs 140, 150 pounds, and you want the physique of a guy that weighs even 170 or even 180 pounds, where is all of this muscle mass going to come from if you keep your body weight the exact same? As I mentioned in my novice purgatory video, one of the key signs that you are stuck in novice purgatory is the fact that you're obsessed with bells and whistles and special hacks and techniques and supplements and all this other stuff that is allegedly going to get you these crazy results, when the answer you probably need in the vast majority of cases is simply to eat more. I was watching Athlete X a lot whenever I was new to YouTube fitness. I followed his advice religiously for almost 3 years. I made some aesthetic improvements, of course, but I was still severely lacking in the strength department. I was not even close to a 225-pound bench, and I still was fitting easily into the small size shirts. So unless you're somebody that just wants to get this nice little kind of twink look going, and you just want to get kind of lean and look a little bit better, you can do that relatively easily by recomping, and you're going to be good. But if you want to build serious muscle, serious strength, get truly jacked, that's not going to cut it. So I think the people best suited to recomposition and get the most benefits from it are the ones we listed earlier, namely if you're very new to the gym, and if you're somebody who is perhaps roughly around 20% body fat as a man, you can coast while recomping for a little bit, build some muscle, drop some fat. But as you eventually do drop that fat and you get down into the mid-teens and perhaps even lower, at a certain point, those recomposition gains and progress, they're going to flatline. And then perhaps you find a channel like mine, and you start bulking. And something I notice a lot in comments now are guys who never bulked before because either they were overweight and obese and they simply just cut down, or they're skinny guys but they were bought into the fear-mongering of bulking is only going to make you fat, etc. All that garbage. And then, once they do finally start bulking, the floodgates are going to open. Meaning, they're going to eat way too much and they think that they're going to gain way more muscle than they actually can in a given time frame. So it's very common for younger dudes especially to go on their first bulk. They will start stuffing their face, and a lot of times you guys don't even have the best eating habits to begin with. You're eating a lot of junk food, processed food, fast food, things like that. Oh bro, I'm going all in, bro. Right? You're basically like the male Stephanie Buttermore. You guys just start shoveling food down your mouths, and over the span of a few months, you will gain 20 up to 30 pounds. And for a lot of people, if you never have bulked before, it is kind of mentally freeing not to have to be so obsessive over every single thing you eat. That said though, if you bulk in this fashion, you're going to gain a lot of excess fat that you don't need. Your strength is not going to be on par with the body weight that you get to, and then eventually once you cut down again and you don't look very different, you're going to curse bulking and say that it doesn't work. This type of thinking, the dirty bulk fallacy, and the people that actually apply it, that's why bulking gets a bad name. There are a select group of people that will willingly bloat max and essentially dirty bulk for years on end because they just want to get as big as possible, get the best leverage as they can, and just become as strong as they can. That's totally fine, I get it, do what you want, but for most people, they're not going to go with that. So when it comes to bulking, you cannot fall into, especially when it comes to articles you'll see online too, he packed on 10 pounds of muscle in 4 weeks, all these grandiose claims that you're going to see. People see this, then they say, oh, if I just eat more, I can really step on the gas and get the gains going at full speed. Bulking is going to put your gains at full speed, of course, but if you really floor it, if you step on the gas too hard, you're going to crash. And you can rest assured that whenever somebody does a dirty bulk and it fails, and then they broadcast it online, even if they knew it was going to fail and they intentionally did it for the content, there are going to be the vultures that swoop in and say, oh, see, look, it's another example of why bulking doesn't work. He just got so fat. And then the impressionable guys who are probably recomping right now are going to see that, and they will swear off bulking forever until 2 or 3 years down the line they realize, I've made no progress, then they're going to dirty bulk to compensate. You see how this goes in a circle? So I know this can be hard, guys, especially if you're somebody that has been very restrictive with food in the past, but don't just go balls to the wall, food fight mode whenever you're bulking now. You still need it to be methodical and structured to get the most benefits from a serious bulk. That is the biggest pro of the bulking phase. It is the most advantageous to muscle gain, and this is another reason why a lot of guys say bulking doesn't work, especially if they dirty bulk. They put on all this fat, they gain all this water weight, then they're going to say, oh man, I'm spilling over too much. Then they cut immediately. They gave their bulk a total of 2 to 3 months. It didn't pan out as they expected it to do. That's the key thing here, their expectation. They're looking for a solution, not the trade-off. Then they cut back down. A serious bulking phase, guys, is not going to be just 2 or 3 months. This is going to be many, many months, more than likely a year or longer. If you're a complete novice right now and on the skinny side, you probably need to bulk for at least 2 full years to really build your base and milk out all of your novice to intermediate gains. My general rule for bulking is a plus 200 estimated surplus, and once again, I say estimated because there is no way to track to a T the amount of calories that you think you're consuming or expending on a daily basis. It is not possible no matter how much you weigh food, how much you step on the scale all the time, etc. We're talking ballpark figures here. Do not drive yourself crazy. But plus 200 estimated is a good point to where you're going to get the benefits of the increased food intake, but it's not going to be enough to really negatively affect your overall body fat. Of course you're going to gain some body fat. As I've talked about in a previous video too, do not fall into the lean bulk myth, like you're just going to do a micro little bit of surplus and just gain purely muscle and no fat. It doesn't work that way. But the sweet spot of a bulk is whenever you, first of all, do it long enough to really reap the benefits of it, and you can find a point where your body fat is going up a little bit, nothing extreme, and you're seeing consistent progress on your lifts on a weekly, at least bi-weekly basis. And this is one of the most pivotal aspects of the bulking phase too that guys don't understand a lot of the time. You need to focus on your logbook more than the scale. Do not obsess over gaining a given amount of weight every single week. There's too many variables on a regular basis, not only within your own body, but on the scales and other measurement tools that you're using to guarantee X amount of weight gain in a given week. And I have to say this again too, do not fall for the old adage that, oh, a 500 surplus over the span of a week is guaranteed to make you obese. It's not. But both your body weight and your lifts need to be slowly and steadily climbing up. What a lot of guys do is they fall into the old school bodybuilding mindset of just getting the pump, that's all they care about. They're doing a bunch of junk volume, they're doing way too many isolation exercises, hopscotch on the machines, and they're just like, oh man, if I just really squeeze and contract and get the burn and get the pump, I'm just filling my muscles with all this extra food I'm eating. It might feel that way after your 5th bicep exercise in a row, but tangibly speaking, you're not putting all that food to proper use. You need to be focusing on the compound movements. These can be barbells, machines, dumbbells, a combination of all of these. This is not an exercise selection video, but if everything you're doing is just light little stuff in front of the mirror on your bulking phase, and especially if you're one of these guys that is skipping legs often or all the time, you are doing your body composition a huge disservice. So in the grand scheme of things, guys, if your paramount goal is to get as big and strong as possible, even you guys who only train purely for hypertrophy, I don't care about strength, right? If your goal is to get as big as possible, most of the time in your training career is going to be spent bulking. High school and college, the younger you are basically, these are the best times to bulk. You're already young, you have pimples all over your face, you're socially awkward, you're not getting any girls. This is the perfect time to put your ego to the side, build all the muscle and strength, get it out of the way. Then as you get older, get more mature, get more money, more social opportunities, etc., then you can lean down and become the aesthetic bra that you've always wanted to be. As I've said before, guys, bulking is like Thanos, it's inevitable if you are a serious lifter. If you have serious body image problems right now and you can't mentally handle this yet, I don't really know what to tell you. Watch some of my other content relating to this, but bulking is necessary for the vast majority of people at some point. Get used to it. The only real cons of bulking are the little bit of body fat gain, and even then, mentally for a lot of you, that's something you need to undergo anyway. And if you're looking to identify other fellow bulk kings out in the wild, be sure to check out the official merchandise on my spring store. Now let's go into the final way that you can alter your body composition, cutting. And cutting is what brings people all of the glory. And this is why a lot of guys, as I mistakenly did too whenever I started, you will begin your training journey and want to cut because you see a bunch of ripped up guys who are on the covers of magazines, famous online, etc. And you're like, oh man, well he's really shredded with sharp abs. If I just cut down, I'm gonna get sharp abs like that too. Probably not.
I'm afraid I've got some bad news.
You barely have any muscle on your body, if any at all. So if you attempt to cut right now and you restrict your food intake, you do a bunch of cardio, all this other stuff, and you get sucked in, as I've said before, if you cut when you're skinny fat, for example, you look like a gremlin. You look like the little dude from the Lord of the Rings. You don't have enough muscle on your body to see real body composition improvements, even if you get lean. And especially based on your own genetics and current muscle mass and things like that, even if you cut at the current point, you may get really lean and still not have visible abs, or barely have visible abs. This is the nightmare scenario a lot of guys will encounter whenever they start cutting seriously for the first time, before they really build their base. You go through all this work to get lean, you finally get to that point, and your abs still look like crap. That is traumatizing. But I can put up this old photo of me for reference here. This was taken in 2017, I want to say, maybe late 2016. I was still pretty new to the gym. Now you can see, right, there's veins in my arms. You may think that I had visible abs if you see all these other things. But if I looked and faced the camera directly, which is why I don't have a picture of myself doing it, because I didn't like how I looked, there was no visible abs. So the question is, why was that the case if my shoulders were veiny, I had some serratus and oblique showing, etc.? I am somebody genetically that does not get abs very easily. I've had to work my ass off to get visible abs, especially at the higher body fats, and if you don't have a whole lot of muscle on your frame, the abs are no different. This is one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to getting visible abs, guys, that you can just starve your way or cut your way into visible abs. If you're a guy that has had visible abs since you were young, that might be the case for you. As I mentioned, this is highly genetic. But for a lot of us, that's not going to be the case, and the abs are still a muscle. They work just like any other muscle group. If you don't have any definition in your abs, no size in your abs, even if you get lean, they're not going to magically pop out and look amazing. You still have to build them like any other muscle, and guess what? You're going to build the most muscle, even in the abs, during your bulking phases. The common adage that abs are made in the kitchen is totally incorrect. You can click the video in the top corner. I give a full breakdown of that misconception there. Abs are not made in the kitchen, but they are revealed in the kitchen. So once you do have the abdominal structure and strength and size built, then you can really start to see your abs, but if that's not the case for you, you're not going to be able to see anything. And as you get bigger and stronger over the course of years via intelligent bulking cycles, you're going to start to be able to see your abs at higher body fats. It is not uncommon, guys, for dudes to be in high teens body fats after they've put in years and years of serious training and have more ab definition than they did when they started out skinny at low teens body fats. And this is why ultimately, if you're serious about the gains, you're going to be spending much more of your time bulking than cutting. The only exception being if you're somebody that's overweight or obese to start, you're going to be cutting for a while. Still probably going to have to bulk down the line. But this is exactly why. Muscle is far harder to gain than fat is to lose. Guys, you can make some diet adjustments and lose 3 to 5 pounds of scale weight in the matter of a few days. Now, is that really all going to be body fat? Most likely not. But the point stands, losing fat is something once you kind of dial in the variables, it happens very, very quickly. Say you want to lose 10 pounds of fat or gain 10 pounds of muscle. Losing the 10 pounds of fat can take as little as a number of weeks. Gaining 10 pounds of muscle, unless you're a complete novice, it's going to be much quicker, but even then, that's going to take a number of months. So, in terms of the discrepancy between fat loss and muscle gain, it's always easier to lose fat, whether that's in the short term or in the long term. You can see examples online. You may have lived through this yourself, or maybe a family member or a friend has. People yo-yo up and down the same 30 pounds of body fat, sometimes in the span of a year. They will have a stressful period of their life, it's very busy, they eat out too much, go up 30 pounds. They go back into the gym, they start taking the eating more seriously, they drop 30 pounds. That is what true yo-yo dieting is. You're losing and gaining the same pounds of body fat over and over. That's why you need to build the muscle to cut through the yo-yo cycle. Somebody that has put on 10 pounds of muscle is not going to easily lose 10 pounds of muscle. And therein lies the biggest trade-off and the biggest issue ultimately with cutting. It is going to negatively impact your muscle gain, and the farther you take cutting, you could potentially start to lose muscle. But that's the illusion that cutting provides. You're going to look bigger when you are leaner. And I think that's why a lot of beginners, even if their lifts and everything else are stalling noticeably, they are going to stay lean because it's like, oh, well, hey, you know, I look good in pictures. That's all it's really going to be. Especially if you get these photos that are professionally edited, taken by pro photographers, light-roomed and photoshopped up. You can definitely take a skinny guy and make him look relatively big at the glance of an eye. But if you really analyze the photo and then see videos of him and watch him train, you're going to realize, oh, this guy is not big at all. When it comes to the size of the deficit, you could do the inverse of my bulking advice and go minus 200. You probably could double that and go minus 400 to start, though, once again, because cutting is a faster process, fat loss is a faster process than muscle gain. I think you can kind of speed it up a little bit more in that regard, but don't do one of these crazy cuts. You start eating 1,500 calories a day as a grown man. Just understand, though, the faster that you really cut your food intake down, your body is going to respond to that. So if you cut out a lot of food very, very quickly, your body is going to lower your metabolism as a reaction and a defense to that, and that's going to happen when cutting regardless. That's why you can't cut for extremely long periods of time, especially in harsh deficits. The body's always going to find a way to reach homeostasis and fight back against that. It can do this by crushing your metabolism, you start to experience hormone problems, you have trouble sleeping, your sex drive goes down, your strength goes down even faster than it might have been. Your body's hard to beat. The cutting phase is what gives a lot of people online body dysmorphia, simply because everybody looks so good and so crazy you're desperate to keep up. It's an illusion a lot of the time. Most of them have the pro photographers, the edits, boatloads of PEDs assisting them, etc. You're just a random guy or girl who's going to the gym. You need to step out of that body dysmorphic social media addiction space to really make smart decisions when it comes to bulking, cutting, and recomposition. And this video, I hope, helped you out with that. But this has been it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Big shout out, as always, to the Patreon supporters and the channel members. Hit me up in the links down below, especially Patreon, to get in direct contact for your own questions about training and eating. And I will catch you guys next time.